Good evening, everybody. I think we'll make a start. It's lovely to have so many of you joining us this evening. We've got a very special evening in store. We're doing our next Evening with Hedgehog Street event, and we're going to be joined later on by my colleague, Dr. Hen Pringle, to hear all about the brand new National Hedgehog Monitoring Programme. So, a very exciting new project that we've launched. Let's get started. So it'll be me to start with. I'll pass over to Hen shortly, but I thought I'd just give a bit of an introduction about Hedgehog Street and all of the things that we do for those of you who might be new to our project. So just move through. So yeah, the sort of structure of the evening. So we're here till 7 o'clock tonight. So I'll give a bit of an introduction to the Hedgehog Street project, just all of the things that we do, how we run, a bit of an introduction to hedgehogs themselves. I'm sure you're all very familiar, but it's always good to just to give a bit of background information for anyone who might not have sort of seen any hedgehogs before or might not be familiar. We'll go through a few of the threats to hedgehogs. So what are the types of issues that they're facing? And then I'll pass over to Hen, who's going to give us a whistle-stop tour of the NHMP. It's obviously a very big, sort of wide-reaching project, but she's going to give us all of the key information on that brand new project. And then finally, we'll finish off with a Q&A. So we'll be asking Hen all of your questions. So to start with, a bit of information about Hedgehog Street. So I know that a lot of you have been to our events before and are proud Hedgehog champions, which is brilliant. But just to give a bit of an overview for anybody who might be new, so Hedgehog Street is a joint project between two British wildlife charities. So it's People's Trust for Endangered Species and the British Hedgehog Preservation Society. We were set up back in 2011, and that was in response to the quite worrying declines that had been seen in British hedgehog populations. So I've put a few pictures on the right-hand side there of some of the things that we do. You can see me doing some media work there, looking very concerned for the hedgehogs. I like my face in that picture. So we attend a lot of different events to try to encourage people to sort of work, in hedgehog-friendly ways. So we do a lot of work with the general public, with people who have gardens. Of course, we encourage hedgehog-friendly gardening, things like hedgehog highways, which are, of course, 13 centimetre gaps in walls, garden walls and fences to let hedgehogs in. And beyond that, we work with sort of key stakeholders, so people like housing developers, trying to make sure that new build houses, these developments are hedgehog friendly, working with farmers, land managers, sort of green space managers, in councils, trying to work with as many different types of people as possible to try and get that sort of hedgehog friendly message out there. We do a lot of research projects, so we support a lot of researchers, really trying to untangle the reasons for the hedgehog decline, sort of look in a little bit more detail at the declines, all of the reasons, which I'll talk about in a moment, and also look at potential solutions as well. You can see Anina there on the right-hand side, who is setting up one of the National Hedgehog Monitoring Programme cameras. So we've been involved with that project as well. Attending an event in that bottom left picture there, and then also bringing the Hedgehog Street project at a national conference with researchers sort of sharing the work that we do. We run training courses as well. So we have a course on hedgehog ecology and land management. So that's for people like council, sort of green space managers. So people who run, the parks that we all go to, trying to ensure that these green spaces are managed well for hedgehogs, so that they can have sort of thriving hedgehog populations. So quite a far-reaching project. There's a lot of work that we do. And one of the key things as well is working with fantastic voluntary hedgehog groups all over the UK. I'm hoping some of them are on the call tonight. I recognised a few of the names when I emailed earlier. So there's a lot of volunteer groups, fantastic local groups all over Britain doing brilliant things for hedgehogs. And we work with them and support them as much as possible. Sort of helping out with resources that they might need, or whether it's sort of putting them in touch with other groups who might be nearby so that they can collaborate. So lots of different ways that we can help there. So if you are a local group, if you're just starting one, do certainly get in touch. We'd love to sort of help you out. A quick introduction to the species as well, of course, always good to talk about that. So I think everyone's sort of familiar with hedgehogs, of course, but a bit of the kind of finer detail. Interestingly, we only have one species here in Britain, which is the West European hedgehog. And it's one of around 17 species of hedgehog worldwide. So they're found in lots of different areas across Europe. You get desert hedgehogs, there's long-eared hedgehogs, all these different types of hedgehogs. They are Britain's only spiny mammal. So, of course, one of the characteristic features of hedgehogs, they have sort of spines all over their back, and they use those for defense. So if they feel threatened, they'll curl up in a ball, and they're just sort of this impenetrable spiky ball. And those spines are made up of keratin as well, which is it's the same material as our hair and nails. So they're almost like a modified kind of sharp hair for defense. In terms of their senses, they do obviously see. They use their eyes to move around, but they have relatively quite poor eyesight, and they do rely more on smell and hearing. So if you are lucky enough to see one in the garden, you'll see its nose twitching the whole time that it's there. They're always smelling and listening to take in their environment. They're nocturnal, so of course it's the opposite way around than we are. They are awake and active at night. So they'll be moving around. So you might not know that they're in the garden, but actually they might be coming in the depths of night. So it's always worth keeping an eye out. In terms of what they eat, they are omnivorous. So they'll make use of lots of different things. It's primarily going to be sort of creepy crawlies in the garden. So think things like earthworms, beetles, earwigs, caterpillars. But they might also make use of things like carrion if there's any fallen fruit. And of course, people can put food out in the garden to supplement that. So things like meaty cat and dog food are a really good way to help them just to pop that supplementary food out. And also just water. They don't, no milk. I think that message is thankfully getting out there, but just shallow dishes of clean, fresh water to help them. And they're usually brown in colour. And I say that because you do get blonde variations, which are very cute if you're lucky enough to see one. They're very sweet. So in terms of a year of the life, obviously this is with a pinch of salt because between the seasons, it's not necessarily going to be freezing cold all winter. Sometimes we have milder patches. So just kind of very generally, during the winter, they're going to be hibernating. So that's, of course, a period of time sort of between, I would say, kind of November through until maybe March-ish, but that does depend on weather. Also depends on their kind of health and body condition as well. So they'll have a couple of sturdy hibernation nests that they'll build, and they'll move between those during the season. And yeah, they might rouse from hibernation to feed, to swap nests, just to sort of move around and look for food. Moving on to spring, it is where we are at the moment, which is, of course, the breeding season. So they'll rouse from hibernation. They've often lost a lot of the body fat that they have through hibernation, so they need to feed up. So that's a really good time to leave any food out in the garden. And then they will be moving around looking for potential mating partners. So males and females are going to be mating with multiple partners. It's quite a lengthy courtship, so I don't know if anybody's seen that in the garden, but it's quite a long process of the male sort of circling the female and making lots of puffing and puffing noises. So you're probably more likely to hear them than you are to see them at this time of year. And then in the summer, you'll get to hoglet season. So they'll keep mating kind of throughout the spring and summer, and then they'll give birth to sort of probably 4 or 5 hoglets, but not all of them will generally survive, sadly. They'll stay in the nest for sort of 3 to 4 weeks before going out exploring with mum, who'll sort of take them out like this one here and teach them how to be a hedgehog, what to do, what not to do. And after about 10 days, sort of 2 weeks time out foraging with mum, after that, they'll go off on their own. And they are solitary. So if you do see hedgehogs together, they're probably going to be a courting pair or potentially a family. But yeah, they don't really move around in sort of family groups past this hoglet stage. And then coming on to autumn, they're going to be starting to prepare for hibernation. So they're going to be building nests. You can see that hedgehog there is carrying some grass. They're going to use things like grass, leaves, twigs, all of these things to build those hibernation nests. So do try and leave things like fallen leaves, leave a supply of those in the garden because they're going to be really good nesting materials. They do sometimes have a second litter of hoglets in the autumn, but these are potentially not going to gain enough weight to survive the hibernation period. So if you do see a small hedgehog in the autumn, it could be a sign that it needs help. So you can contact the British Hedgehog Preservation Society. They've got lots of advice on the website. and they can put you in touch with an independent hedgehog carer if needed. So a quick run through, I won't go through these in a huge amount of detail, but just to give you a bit of an overview of the types of problems that hedgehogs are facing here in Britain. So agricultural intensification is one. So land is, of course, increasingly being used for food production, use of chemicals, widespread chemicals, loss of hedgerows, all of these things are contributing to the rural environment sort of being less habitable for hedgehogs, unfortunately. Again, that links to habitat loss, sort of loss of hedgerows, but more widely kind of loss of these sort of more wild spaces that hedgehogs can thrive in. Habitat fragmentation, so even when there are pockets of suitable habitat, they're often blocked by fences, by roads, just meaning that they can't move freely through the environment, which is of course a hindrance. Roadkill, obviously quite a major threat, and that's probably one of the most visual ones because I'm sure we've all seen them sadly on the side of the road. That's obviously a huge problem throughout Britain. And predation, so badgers are the main natural predator of hedgehogs in Britain. And hedgehogs do often avoid areas where there are high densities of badgers if there's a lot of badgers in the area. But with this, it's important to bear in mind it's a completely natural predator-prey interaction. The two species have been coexisting for a long time, and we know that the two species can thrive alongside each other when the conditions are good and there's enough of that creepy crawly prey for both species. And finally, garden hazards. I've put a few examples of those along the bottom there. So sadly, there's a lot of things, a lot of ways they can get injured and they can sadly die. So entanglement is one. So obviously they've got these lovely spines that they use for defense, but sadly that does mean that they can very much get tangled up, whether it's in kind of netting or even things like crisp packets, like, food tubs, yogurt pots, anything like that. So that's a really sad one, but one that we can do something about, always try and sort of pick up litter from gardens and surrounding areas. Bonfire night is another one. They do, of course, get stuck in bonfires. It's the time of year that they're going to be looking for those hibernation nests. So if they see a big pile of logs, they're going to think that that's a great place to nest, obviously not really realizing that that's going to be part of a bonfire night display. Things like chemicals in the garden, of course, they're going to deplete the natural food, but also potentially cause poisoning to the hedgehog itself. And finally, on the right-hand side there, accidents with strimmers, which hedgehog rescues report a lot of these every year. The hedgehogs hiding in the long grass, and sadly, they do sustain quite severe injuries from those. So always if you're doing any mowing or strimming or anything like that in the garden, it's really worth just having a very careful check. And that is everything from me. So I'll stop showing my screen there. And I'll introduce our special guest for this evening, Dr. Hen Pringle, who's the project coordinator of the National Hedgehog Monitoring Programme. So yeah, I'll hand over to you, Hen.
Hi there. Thank you very much, Grace. I'm just going to share my screen. Hopefully you are seeing that correct screen. Good. So thank you so much for all coming along to hear about this brand new survey. It's the National Hedgehog Monitoring Programme. We're in our pilot phase, so we're in the second year. We launched last year. We just rolled out to a few sites last year. So now we're getting into the real kind of meat of it this year in our second year. Before I go any further, I just wanted to introduce our sort of project partners. So I work with, I'm funded by both British Hedgehog Preservation Society and People's Trust for Endangered Species, and they are sort of co-funding the project together with Natural England. And then we've also got fantastic partners in Nottingham Trent University, who've done a lot of work on hedgehog research and producing density estimates. And then we've got the team at ZSL and London Hogwatch, who do a lot of work on camera trapping hedgehogs and also the method that I will come to talk about a bit later on. And then finally, we've got Durham and MammalWeb. They are responsible for the sort of image platform that we're using to put all our images online. And I'll tell you a lot more about that later. So to give you a bit of background, obviously Grace has given you some nice details about hedgehogs in general and the threats that they face, unfortunately. We do know that they have declined quite a lot in the last couple of decades, really. We think that they've declined by around 30 to 75% in the countryside, which is obviously quite, that the upper end, that's three-quarters of hedgehogs lost, which is really quite a shocking amount. Um, on the other hand, urban populations, there's a bit of hope there. They're showing signs of recovering, well, stabilizing and possibly actually recovering, which is great news, and that's potentially down to hedgehog champions, such as a lot of you, I imagine, connecting up your gardens, putting out food, and generally just raising awareness about the plight of hedgehogs. Um, One thing I want to draw your attention to there is I've mentioned this range of 30 to 75%. 75%. That's quite a large interval that I've said there, and that kind of just gives an idea of what we're dealing with. That there's quite a lot of uncertainty around our estimates that we've got for hedgehogs. Despite being such a loved mammal, it's often voted Britain's favourite mammal. We don't have a really good handle on the actual numbers of hedgehogs we've got. What we do have on the right here is the big hedgehog map, which is collected by Hedgehog Street. And those are records. I imagine many of you probably have submitted some of these records. Those are records of hedgehogs that people have seen out and about in their gardens, that sort of thing. So that's a fantastic resource. It tells us where people have seen hedgehogs. However, it's a reflection more of perhaps where people are looking for hedgehogs, and therefore actually where people are, where the most densely human populated areas are. So you'll see there on the map there are pockets of Scotland and Wales, the more perhaps remote areas where there aren't so many people, so that there aren't those eyes looking for hedgehogs. It also doesn't tell us about absences, and it doesn't tell us about effort data. But it does give us, really, really useful distribution information there. The other data that we have is based on sort of relative changes. So we're looking at sort of how sites have changed. So there are fewer sites with hedgehogs than before. We're comparing across survey types. So it's quite hard to get a really good handle on those declines. So what we need is a new survey method. We need to know about numbers, and numbers are really important because they give us a warning sign when things are in trouble. So knowing that hedgehogs are there, we know they're there until they're not. Whereas if you've got numbers, you can see how they're doing. You can see that they're declining or getting better, and you can put appropriate conservation measures in. So numbers are really important. The other side is that also we have targets to reduce biodiversity declines and to stop the decline in biodiversity. But in order to do that, we need to know about them. We need to know the baseline data. So that's why we need numbers. And the other thing is, in order to get those numbers, we need consistent methods that we can compare across habitat types and across years. So that's where this survey comes in. So this is sort of summarising what I've just said, really, but it's a crucial thing is standardising effort. So it's knowing how much effort has gone into surveying. If we have a standardised survey where everyone's surveying in the same way, in this case, we're putting cameras out, they're put out in the same way, they're put out for the same amount of time, then that gives us effort information. So we can say, if there haven't been any hedgehogs spotted over that period of time, that's really valuable information, as well as if there have been hedgehogs there. So it's that effort that's really crucial. And then what we hope to get out of it is these robust population estimates, which are going to be really, really useful. Trends over time. This is going to be, hopefully, if all goes well, at the end of the 3 years, this will be an annual monitoring project. So we hope that we'll be able to compare across time. We'll also be able to compare across habitats, across land use, so looking at urban and rural environments, and other less surveyed areas, we don't really know about hedgehogs in woodlands, for example. So it's or in upland areas. So this will give us information about that. And then also what I'll show you later is that it'll give us data on other species as well, because it's using trail cameras. So we'll be capturing lots of images of lots of different species. So eventually, the results from the National Hedgehog Monitoring Programme will feed into things like biodiversity indicators, our Living Planet Index, and our National Hedgehog Conservation Strategy, which is a project that Grace has been working very hard on with lots of colleagues at Hedgehog Street and lots of wider stakeholders. What we'll be able to do is we'll be able to look at drivers of change and identify at-risk populations and put in those conservation measures, which is really important. So how will it work? Well, as I say, it's a national camera trap trail camera survey. So we'll be putting the cameras out in the same way. We'll be surveying sites at the same time of year. And this will mean that we can repeat it and we can be confident that the variation we see in our results is actually due to variation in hedgehog numbers and not due to variation in how people are doing the survey. And that's really important. So the general concept is that we have volunteer hubs. So we work with fantastic partner organisations. We've been sort of busy approaching quite a few. Some of you may be with us tonight. So people like wildlife trusts, local mammal groups, universities, all those sorts of groups. And each of those hubs acts for a region, and they will be responsible for coordinating up to 5 sites, monitoring up to 5 sites. And each of those sites is 1 kilometre square in size, and we put out 30 cameras per 1 kilometre square, and we put them out in this grid that you see here. So that's the maximum. We hope that a hub would take on 5 sites. Obviously, in the pilot, we can be flexible and see how many we can manage. But that's the sort of the goal. The survey season runs from April to October, so when hedgehogs are most active. And we think that those 5 sites is achievable within that time frame. So what we actually do, we set up the cameras in the field. Again, there's Anina setting up a camera, and those cameras are on constantly, and they're taking images all the time. We have to take a series of images when we start. It's integral to the method that we're using. And we leave the cameras in place for 30 days. So the method that we use is called the random encounter model. And this is what allows us to get these robust population estimates. So that's numbers per unit area. So in this case, numbers per kilometre square. And what this means is that we can actually get density estimates for species that are not individually recognisable. So previously, camera trapping, if you want to get abundances and density estimates, it's only really been useful for animals that you can tell apart from each other. So things like tigers that have, individual stripe patterns. So for other species that you can't identify easily, or tell apart rather, camera trapping is still very useful because it gives you presence information, but again, you can't get those numbers. This is where the random encounter model comes in, because for the first time, it means you can actually extract the density information for these particular species that you can't tell apart. So things like hedgehogs, you can't usually tell which one's which. So unless you see them, several together, you don't know that necessarily that you've got several hedgehogs on your patch. And this method, it's been used. Actually, it has been used on tigers in India. It is also being tested across Europe on larger mammals, so things like boar and deer. So it's being rolled out, and it's also been tested for hedgehogs. So colleagues at Nottingham Trent have compared the estimates that you get using this particular method they've compared those estimates with the estimates from more traditional methods, which tend to be more, well, they're much more labour intensive, and they're more intrusive to the hedgehog as well, because it involves catching the hedgehogs, marking them in some way, and then resighting them. So this method avoids all that, which is fantastic, and it means that we can roll it out in a citizen science framework, which is great news. So what we need to do in order to extract these estimates is we need to create a map of our field of view. And so we take a series of images with a stripy pole in front of it. And that basically means we have a map of our field of view, which means we can pinpoint exactly where the hedgehog or other mammal is in the field of view. And that allows us to say how fast the animal is moving, where exactly it is, and also look at its activity rate. And what that means is if over the whole site we have, say, we've seen hedgehogs across 6 cameras, we can start to estimate a probability. Actually, how likely is it that that is 6 different hedgehogs? Is it just one hedgehog? And we can actually start to estimate how many hedgehogs there are. So that's the crucial thing about this method, which sets it apart from others. And also, this stripy pole is different. When the method was first developed, you had to actually measure these key parameters in the field. So when you took the cameras down, you looked at the images in the field, looked at the hedgehog, and then had to measure where it was right there in the garden or in the habitat that you're in. So obviously that's hugely labour intensive as well. So by incorporating this pole, it's opened it up to a volunteer survey, which is really exciting. So this just shows how you take your images across the field of view. So I appreciate that was quite a lot of information about this particular model, but it's just what sets it apart from other surveys and makes it quite groundbreaking, really. So for this year, for last year, for 2023, that was our first year. I started in the role in May last year, and so we didn't start surveying until July, really. So we had 8 hubs, which includes our project partners as well. So 4 external hubs. We did 14 training sessions at 13 different sites, and we did an online training session as well. And in total, we've trained about 90 people in how to put the cameras out, how to calibrate the cameras, i.e. walk across the field of view with that stripy pole. And the idea is that those people will then be able to redeploy this year, no problems. And then we'll keep on training up new people at new sites. So the ones in white there, those are the ones from last year. The ones in yellow are for this year. And this probably needs updating, this map, but we have around 16 hubs this year at varying stages of completeness. So we're aiming for about 30 sites this year. And actually already we've got 5 sites that are sort of in progress. And 1 site has been completed already. We've got a hub in Wiltshire who have they're going for the full 5 sites this year, and so they've already put out their cameras for a month and taken them in, and then they're getting them all ready for the next deployment. And again, we think we've trained about 85 people so far. We've done quite a bit of training so far. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was MammalWeb, which is this citizen science camera trap platform. So it's a website where you can upload images. So we're using it for our NHMP images. So the problem that we have, well, it's a good problem to have, is that we're generating a phenomenal amount of images. So I mentioned we had 13 sites from last year. That generated 2 million images. So the cameras are on constantly for 30 days. So that means they're taking photos whenever anything triggers, walks across the field of view. So what that means is we have a huge amount of images, and we need to know which of those images have hedgehogs in them to begin with. we will also be looking at other animals in due course. So if it were down to me or a couple of colleagues, that would take a phenomenal amount of time. We're talking months, months and months, majority of a year, I would think. Um, and that would be your sole task, really. So we're looking for fantastic volunteers to actually go online and look at our images. And then we can see, okay, which ones have hedgehogs, which are the images that need to go and be analysed first. So this is MammalWeb. There are a couple of ways to go about it. You can go to, if you just Google MammalWeb and you go to the project page, you'll find us on the National Hedgehog Monitoring. Our name was too long, so we had to be condensed. So you can click on us there, or you can go direct to mammalweb.org/NHMP. And that'll take you straight to our page, which is here. So this is for the national project. So you can choose to classify this project, which is all images from the whole national project, or you can look at sub-projects. So if you have a particular interest, in your local area, or perhaps you've even volunteered and you've helped deploy cameras in some of these areas, then you can go and actually look at the images from those particular sites. I just want to go back for a second, because on this page, it also gives you information about the images that have been uploaded, those that have been classified. That's where people have looked through the images. And also, I just wanted to draw your attention there. This is a national hedgehog monitoring program, but we do have a lot of images of other things as well. You'll see there that the top most classified species, the species that people see most often, is pheasant, not even a mammal. No hard feelings. So these are your sub-projects. Again, you just click on the image. We will put different images on the different sub-projects as we start to find them. And you click on the image and you can go and classify your specific sub-project if you wish. And then what you do then, you're presented with an image or a sequence of images, more likely, where the camera's been triggered in quick succession. So here, hopefully, you'll see a hedgehog. He's just here if you're having trouble. So what you do here, you go to your list on the right and you find hedgehog. This list here is for common species. You can click in to the more detailed list if the thing you want isn't actually there. So what you might find is that you have several images. So the dots down here, you'll have several dots. In order to get to your next sequence and for your submission to work, you have to click through all the dots. So once you've clicked on hedgehogs, that you think it's a hedgehog, you're presented with a bit of information. You can go and say how many you see. This will be largely irrelevant for hedgehogs, the gender and the age. But for some species, such as pheasant, you will be able to tell that, or at least the sex, at least. And then you'll see, once you've tagged your image, you'll see a little tag down here. It's tagged as hedgehog. And then you simply go to next sequence. So what we've got now, we've got images from 13 sites uploaded. And that's actually 2 million, over 2 million images there, which is a phenomenal amount, as I said before. And what happens is, actually, before any of those images are shown to the public, they go through AI. They go through AI models. And any images that are of people or that are blank images, so are triggered by waving vegetation, flashing lights, or something like that, those are all removed. So then what's left, in our case, actually 285,000 sequences were left, which, rough calculation, would probably be about 500,000 images. So those are the ones that are left, and those have all been classified by at least one spotter. There are some more going on now. And what we need is lots of people to view the images, and to view multiple people to view the images, so that we can get the identifications to agree, and we can see if people agree on what they're seeing. So I would urge you to all have a go. It's really fun. It's really quite addictive. You can set up leaderboards, and you can see your tally of how many you've done, and yeah, I'm not going to say it wastes a lot of time. It's very vital work, but yeah, you'll while away the hours doing it. And we've had several emails from people saying, "I can't believe I've spent 3 hours doing this." So it's really good fun. I urge you all to have a go. So down to the nitty gritty, hedgehogs. We have on the species list on MammalWeb, they're at number 14. So they're the 14th most seen animal on the NHNP project on MammalWeb. And they've actually been spotted at 7 of our 13 sites, which is great. And that's another important thing, that we're not putting our cameras at known hedgehog areas, because, as I say, we want to know about absences as well. And you never know that actually, even if you think it's a hedgehog absent area, one might turn up. So so the absences are really important. So actually, having 7 of the 13 sites positive, that's great, but the negatives are really important too. So we do have a lot of other animals as well that have been spotted. So that leads us on nicely to our little quiz that we've put together.
Yeah, so we thought it would be nice to give people a bit of a flavour of the NHNP spotting, and sort of put you all on the spot and give you a bit of a quiz. So hopefully we've got a few spotters in the audience, people who've already had a bit of a go at it. But yeah, so you'll see a picture, and then you'll get a poll on the screen. So if you just click whatever you think it is, whatever you're seeing on that image, and then we'll see how good you all are at NHNP spotting. So if we could get the first image. So we'll have a little look. So what do we think that is? You can move the little poll box if you want to have I was going to say a closer look, but I don't think you could really get much closer than this particular animal. So do we think this is a partridge, a chicken, a pheasant, or is it a peacock? So cast your votes. I'll give you a couple of seconds there to have a bit of a think. And then if you just submit your answer. We've been getting some good pictures, haven't we, Hen? It's been some really sort of funny animals coming right up to the camera. There's been some great ones.
Yeah, we've had a lot where they've come, really close to the camera, or even just, they're just in shot, just popping up. Yeah.
Yeah, they do seem to be quite inquisitive, don't they? Which is interesting. They sort of see this new thing and they want to have a look. Yeah. So should we have a look at what did people think for this one? Let's have a look at your answers. So a lot of people saying it's a pheasant, a couple of people thinking or one person thinking it's a chicken, peacock, all these things. It is a pheasant. So very well done there, those who said pheasant. Moving on to the next one, we've just got a couple of these. So just keeping you on your toes, making sure you're all awake. So the next one, have a good look at that one. What do we think that is? I love these motion shots as well. There's great ones of just animals in mid-air, just going about their daily business, which is fab. So do we think this is a stoat, a sausage dog, a weasel, or do we think it's a rat?
Don't give it away there, Grace.
So have a little look. What do we think? Cast your votes now. And then should we have a look at the answer to that one? Yeah, so it's a tricky one. Stoats and weasels, obviously that's a really tricky one to ID. So obviously a bit of a split there. But the main ID feature with that one is the black tip of the tail, which means it's a stoat. But it's a tricky one on the MammalWeb spotting. If you can't see the tail, it does obviously make it a lot more tricky, doesn't it? Cool. On to the next one.
This one's quite mean.
We've been a bit mean here. This is a really hard one, but this is the kind of thing that we get on MammalWeb, isn't it? That they're not always going to come and sort of pose nicely for the picture. We're going to get somewhere we're just like, what on earth is that? So have a bit of a look. What do we think? Is it a rabbit, badger, hedgehog, or squirrel? What do we think it is? So definitely quite a tricky one here. So get your votes in there and then let's have a look at the results. What do we think? So lots of people saying hedgehog, a couple of people saying badger and rabbit, no one saying squirrel. I thought this one was a hedgehog as well. Definitely, those really look like spines. But it is, in fact, a badger. And we know that from the sequence of images that it was in. So there was a very close up one, wasn't there? And then there was sort of, you could
Yeah,
tell.
I was just going to say, so this one has been identified on MammalWeb as a hedgehog. And yeah, the only reason really that I know it's not is because yeah, it was in a sequence of images. There were several in a row. Unfortunately, none showing, full on black and white face, but just the way it was moving and the size as well. As it goes away from the camera, you can see that it's a badger, and actually a bit of a soggy badger as well.
I was going to say that the fur looks a bit like spines, I think, because it's wet, it's all kind of clumped together, hasn't it?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that's, yeah, definitely a bit of a tricky one. And then the next one, got two more of these. So have a good look at that one. What do we think that is? So it's up in the air, which is, of course, a bit of a clue. So is this a sparrow, a blackbird, a flying saucer, UFO, or is it a jay? So have a
I
bit
mean,
of
I
a
guess at this
think.
point it is a UFO.
True, it is an unidentified flying object. You are not wrong. So yeah, have a little look at that one. Cast your votes. The time of day can be quite a good indicator for things as well. I guess if you're dealing with a nocturnal species, that's, if you see it at night, that's going to be a clue. So there's lots of things that you can kind of look at other than just the sort of animal on
Yeah,
screen, I
it's
guess.
it's a good point. The on MammalWeb you can look at the location, so it doesn't show you in great detail kind of where the site is, but it'll at least give you an idea. So that'll narrow it down. For example, if you're thinking red squirrel, grey squirrel, because a lot of the images are black and white because they're nighttime images. And also, there's a great function which is the invert, where it basically it's like the negative. And that's really useful for picking out eye shine or not eye shine, I suppose. But yeah, that's very useful.
Yes, good tips there, Hen. Thank you. Should we look at the answers for this one? What did we think this one was? So it is, of course, a J. So that was the first unanimous answer. So I think you can tell from the blue on the wings, can't you? They're
Yeah.
such gorgeous birds.
Yeah.
And then, oh,
Sorry, I was just going to say it's nice that we've had quite a few birds actually on here, and some that are quite secretive. I mean, you don't see. Well, jays are quite common, but you don't necessarily see them that often. And yeah, we've had a few. We've had buzzards on camera, and a couple of owls as well. So it's been really nice to see those as well.
yeah, brilliant. On to the final picture. I'm hoping this one's a unanimous one. Hopefully, people know what that one is. I don't want to give too much away. So, on that one, if we've got the poll, if we've got the poll for that one, there we go. So, what's this one? Is it a porcupine, a hedgehog, a sea urchin, or a hat bobble? I'm sure a lot of you saw that news story recently where the bobble of a bobble hat was mistaken for a hoglet and taken to a rescue centre. Um, so yeah, what do we think that one is? I'm not going to give you too long on this one. Have we got the answers in for this one? I think we know. Perfect. One person thinking it's a porcupine. Fair enough. That one is, of course, a hedgehog. So yeah, well done, everyone. That was a good round, and that's just a nice kind of. It's a bit of a flavour of the spotting, isn't it? Just sort of we're going to get lots of different species, and they're not always going to be super easy to kind of ID. So yeah,
Yeah,
I'll pass back to Hen. I'll let you finish off.
thanks very much. Yeah, we do get a lot of really close ups, which are challenging. And you can always put don't know. There is a don't know tag as well, and there's also things like rodent species or vole species, things like that. So if you don't know exactly what it is, or unidentified bird, things like that. So yeah, have a go. But also do bear in mind it is a hedgehog survey, but you're not guaranteed to see hedgehogs. I will just say that. So just to finish up, these are some details. So if you want to know more about the survey, go to nhmp.co.uk. You can email nhmp@ptes.org. The video there, that's actually on our NHMP website. And that's a video, an introduction to spotting. So it takes you through how to actually go through the spotting process on MammalWeb. So you will need to register for an account on MammalWeb, but that's nice and easy. And you can sign up for updates from us and all that sort of thing. And that's it. So thank you very much. This is our poster hog from a site in Nottinghamshire. I think he was our first one that we actually saw. So he gets a special mention.
Thanks, Hen. That was brilliant. It's really good to hear all about it. I remember when we saw that, it was a very exciting moment, wasn't it? When we when we saw that last hedgehog, it was the first one that we'd seen on the project, and it was like, thank God.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It was a good moment. So we've got a little bit of time for questions now. So thank you for everyone who's dropped those into the Q&A. I think Anina's sort of been answering some of them and putting links and things. So there was a couple of questions. I think you went on to answer them, but before you did, there was a couple of questions about AI and kind of that's the use of that. And I guess that's one of the more groundbreaking kind of elements of this, isn't it? It's really clever the way that it's being used.
Absolutely. Yeah, so this is the first time that AI has been integrated into MammalWeb. It's a team from Liverpool John Moores that are working on the actual AI model, conservation AI. And what it means is, as I say, it's really cutting down the processing time, and it's saving all of you that will go on to be spotters, I'm sure. It's saving all of you time in looking through endless blank images. I should say there are a couple of blank images still in there, just to keep you interested. And also just to double check that the AI hasn't missed anything. But it's, proportionally a lot fewer than we started. And also it means that we're filtering out the images of humans, so it gets rid of any of those kind of privacy issues as well, which is obviously a factor in any kind of trail camera survey like this.
Yes, that was something someone had asked about before the session. We had an email question that was kind of saying, actually, what if I'm walking through a park and I get sort of caught on, are people going to be seeing these images of me? But that's all kind of filtered out, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. It's all those are all filtered out so that no one should see them, not even us that are coordinating it. So yeah, there shouldn't be any concerns there. There are labels on the cameras if anyone comes across them to tell you a bit about the project. There's a QR code, so you can immediately that takes you to a website saying you found a camera. This is what it's for. So hopefully people can find out more information there.
Yes, yeah, that's always a good idea, isn't it? On the subject of those cameras, obviously they're being put in parks and things quite a lot. Do they get stolen? Do people, because they're sort of locked on, aren't they? But
yeah, we lock them in place. We have had one stolen last year. That was in a very urban site. It was in a quite obvious location. So we have had one stolen, but that was we did 13 sites, so whatever the maths there is, that's a one out of hundreds of cameras is pretty good going actually. So yeah.
Yeah, that's not too bad, is it? We had a question from the audience from Julie. I'm a secondary school teacher. Would children be able to assist with this analysis of the images?
Certainly, you can look online, and actually, we have deployed some cameras at a couple of schools, one in Glasgow and one somewhere else that escapes me at the moment. But and that's been really nice. Obviously, not pointing anywhere, kind of away from the children, but that's a really nice way of then engaging the kids. People have gone back and actually shown the images from their school site to the students, which is a really nice way of raising awareness and getting them infused with wildlife and hedgehogs. So yeah, definitely, if you want to have a go, that's fine. Yeah, you can certainly use MammalWeb.
Like you could sort of have it up on a big screen in the classroom and get them all to kind of shout out answers and stuff. It'd be
Yeah, absolutely.
quite
Yeah,
a nice engagement, wouldn't it?
yeah.
We had a question from Michelle. Is it possible to use MammalWeb on mobile or is it just on desktop? More of a technical question.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. You can use it on your mobile. I've been known to sit on the sofa just scrolling through. And you can use it on your mobile. It's slightly harder to see, particularly if there's a tiny mouse or a little bit of eye shine, and you have to sort of make it bigger and stuff. So it's obviously easier on a desktop, but yeah, you can do it on your phone.
Love it. So if you've got a long train journey or something, get
Exactly.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah, get on
Yeah.
because it is. Yeah, I know you said this, but I can very much back up that it is addictive. It's really good fun, and it's sort of you can lose actually quite a lot of time. So just be careful.
But it's all in the
um,
name of research. It's fine.
exactly. Yeah, it's all citizen science. It's all fine. We had a question from Carol. So doing NHMP spotting, I sometimes send the sequence back to the system without recording a response if I have no idea what it is, for example. Is that okay? Or so should people kind of just skip them, or is it better to give it a go in
I
essence?
think it's best to click. There is a don't know at the bottom of the list. So I think it's probably best to click that. Apart from anything else, it's so that you don't get shown that again and again. Um, so yeah, I would if you don't know, that's absolutely fine. And to be honest, it's probably better that you say don't know than you make a wild stab, because we have had a couple of wild stabs. So yeah, don't know is fine. But yeah, that's probably the best thing to do is actually click on don't know.
Yeah, there's kind of mechanisms for that, isn't there? Because we don't want people to be put off and think, actually, I don't want to not know what things are and just give up. So it's very
Yeah,
much it's very kind of accessible, even if you
absolutely. Yeah, have a go. Yeah, no, it's yeah.
yeah, definitely. We've got a very keen person saying, can I volunteer to set up a hub in Devon, or is it too late for this year? Snap them up, then.
Well, we do actually have a hub in Devon and Cornwall. I can certainly provide you with their details. So they already have a hub there with, I think they've got 4 sites for this year. But next year they could potentially go for a fifth. They would be, I'm sure, very keen to have volunteers. So if you perhaps drop me an email at nhmp@pts.org, and then I can hook you up with them. It's the Devon Mammal Group and Cornwall Wildlife Trust, are sort of co-coordinating that hub.
Thank you. So this another one that you kind of answered, but we've got somebody who's contributing to MammalWeb and loving it. Always good to
Good.
hear. It's certainly improved my ID skills. That's great because that's another kind of side effect of it. You're gonna sort of see all this British wildlife. Does anyone check the images we are contributing? I know I struggle with deer species. Deer are really tricky in things like
Yeah,
hares and rabbits. So that kind of links
yeah,
back to that, the AI and the sort of multiple
absolutely. Yeah,
people.
yeah. So yes, I
Yeah.
should have said actually that the AI, as well as filtering out the blanks and the humans, it also does actually give a species identification, um, which we don't actually know how reliable that is. So that's part of the testing, is to see how good that is, how well that compares with human identifications, human spotters, and also what we're going to do is have each image will be presented to multiple spotters, multiple people, so that it's identified by multiple people, so that we get kind of consensus across. If someone said it's, I don't know, if we've had 3 badgers and a hedgehog, then we'll go with the majority vote. And then there is an additional verification in that once we've got the identifications from MammalWeb, they then go on to another analysis stage, and in that stage, there's a bit of manual checking going on there. So they'll be looked at there, and anything that's wrong will be kind of chucked out or reassessed.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Probably got time for a couple more. Try and squeeze them in. Loads of questions coming in. Thank you very much. Try and get through as many as we can, but we might not get to all of them. But you're very welcome to email Hen after the session. She'll be
Absolutely, yeah,
happy to
yeah. Please do.
answer any questions.
Yeah, please do.
Let's have a little look. So do you put signs by the cameras? You've said, yeah, there's a little kind of information thing,
There's
which
a
is,
sticker on the
yeah,
camera, yeah, and we also we provide some information for the site. It's on a site by site basis. It depends on what the manager wants to do, but yeah, we provide information if wanted.
perfect. How is the project funded? Shirley is asking.
That's yeah, that's a good one. As I mentioned, BHPS and PCS are sort of rolling out the project and underwriting it. But the funding for the first 2 years has come from the majority funding has come from Natural England, um, and the third year we need to apply again. But we are also looking for any other opportunities as well. So if you know of anything, please do write me an email. Yeah, we're looking for any opportunities. The main bottleneck is the sets of cameras. We'd love everyone to be a hub, but at the moment we're limited to a set number of hubs that we can have because it's the number of cameras we have. So the more funding, the better. So do let me know.
Yeah, it's a lot of cameras, isn't it? We've had a couple of questions that I'm going to kind of roll into one. So people asking, is there a hub in Essex? Is there a hub in Gwent, Monmouthshire? So as a general question, kind of where can people go to find out where their hub might be and to get involved in that way?
So we will put that map which I showed you. I can briefly go back. Sorry. So we have a map of where the hubs are now, which is here. Which I now can't. I won't do this now. But anyway, we have a map which we can actually we could even send round. But yeah, it will go up on the website. I can tell you we don't currently have one in Essex. We are in conversation or about to be in conversation with Gwent, and there are a couple more in kind of the Cardiff Swansea area. I should have also mentioned we're in conversation with Natural Resources Wales and Nature Scott in terms of funding as well. So we're looking for any and all opportunities. But yeah, if in doubt, do drop me an email and I can tell you where there are hubs. But hopefully we should have that map up soon on our website.
Yeah, that would be really good. And then people can sort of find out and get
Yeah,
involved in that way as well
exactly.
as the
And
Mammal
contact
Web
the hub
stuff.
directly, yeah, and find out how they can volunteer. Yeah.
Perfect. Got time for one last one. So do you show some of the best photos, e.g., most unusual or funny on the website? I'd love to see them somehow because we do have some crackers. So what's the plan? Social media for one, I mean.
Yeah, so at the moment, social media is the plan. I think, yeah, we may well do in future on the website. We need to have to think about kind of where the website's going, but yeah, potentially we could have kind of a gallery of best images, which I think would be really nice and engaging. One thing I should say, if you're on Mammal Web and Spotting, if there are any images that you really like, there's a thumbs up button. Do press that. Do press the like button, and then the people who have uploaded the images will see that, and they will flag them, and so that they get back to whoever, so that we have them collated in a place. So that's really useful. So do that, please.
Lovely. Thank you. I think that's all we've got time for. I feel like the hour's gone really fast. There's a few questions. I think we've got through most of them, but thank you everyone who's popped questions in there. And thank you, of course, Hen, for answering them. And Nina's dropped a couple of links and email addresses into the chat. So if you do want to find out a bit more, if you'd like to get involved, if you want to do a bit of spotting or contact your local hub, there's information there. So do certainly have a look. It's www.nhmp.co.uk. So head over to there. And yeah, we'll wrap things up there. But yeah, thanks so much, Hen. Thanks for joining us. It's been a really interesting evening. Always good to hear more about this new project. And yeah, thank you very much to everybody for joining us. It's been a brilliant evening. And yeah, we'll see you next time. And I'm sure you'll be Mammal Web spotting as well. So we'll look forward to lots of new spotters. Thank you. Good night.
Thanks very much.